It's a special edition of Picks with David, the mid-season report. And thanks for joining me for another edition here on YouTube and Facebook. I'm your host, David Llewellyn, and we're going to talk about the first half of the 2022 NFL season. And we'll begin with the AFC Eastern Division, where we've got the Buffalo Bills in the lead, but it is a hotly contested division. At the beginning of the year, I made my preseason predictions for every division, and you can see those on the left-hand side here in black. On the right-hand side, you can see the records of the teams through 9 weeks of the 2022 NFL season. If they're in green, that means that they have either met or are exceeding the preseason expectations that I set forth for them. The Buffalo Bills are in the lead in the division, but they're coming off a stunning loss against the superstar of the division and the superstar of the AFC, the New York Jets. They're at 6-3, and they already have met the amount of wins that I expected them to have during this entire year. They are a threat in the division and in the AFC thanks to their defense and running game. You can see here that the New England Patriots are right around 500, which is about where I expected them to be, but they're in the thick of this division thanks to that loss by Buffalo. Miami is right there as well at 6-3, and they have beaten the Buffalo Bills. And so only by virtue of a few percentage points at this point does Buffalo have the lead in this division. This is going to be hotly contested down the stretch, and we could see 3 teams from this division make the playoffs. Let's take a look now at the AFC North. In the AFC North, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals, who won the division last year. They're just a hair behind the Baltimore Ravens, who are exceeding the expectations that I set forth for them. While their defense has let them down a few times in the second half, I think that the addition of Roquan Smith is really going to help their run defense. I think it's really going to bolster their defense as a whole. Their offense has started to improve now that they've got a few other targets for Lamar Jackson to throw the ball to. In the minds here of you got Deshaun Jackson, Demarcus Robinson. They're pretty good players, although some of them are getting a little bit older. You do have the rookie Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews is currently injured, but I expect him to be back here within the next week or two, despite the fact that they have had some trouble against some of the tougher teams in the league. I still think that this team is for real, and there's a reason they're leading the division right now in the AFC North. As for Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, I really thought that, with their defense and the way that they could run the football, I thought that they had improved their offensive line, and Najee Harris was going to have a monster year, that it wasn't going to matter whether it was Trubisky or Pickett at the quarterback position. But they've struggled thus far this year, and I think part of it is because of that running game and being able to protect the quarterback. TJ Watt's been out, for several weeks with that pec injury, although I expect he'll be back soon now that they're coming off of a bye. There's still time for Pittsburgh to turn things around here, but it looks like they're having themselves a really down season. As for the Cleveland Browns, they've done a little bit better than tread water here at 3-5, as Jacoby Brissett has done well in place of Deshaun Watson as they wait for him to return in Week 11. And so here we've got, with a 3-5 record for the Cleveland Browns, their running game and defense has been the mainstays of that team. And both them and Baltimore exceeding expectations to this point. As we move to the AFC South, which is, for my money, is now the worst division in the AFC. I mean, you could say that it was between the AFC East and the AFC South for several years, but now definitely the AFC South. The Colts, here they are with Jeff Saturday now at head coach. their decision to bench Matt Ryan and not play him anymore due to contract reasons, I just think that they've given up on their season and they're now going to be tanking. Jonathan Taylor has been injured. A team that really had some aspirations and thought that they could be a Super Bowl contender this year now looked at with one of the worst records in the league. Tennessee coming off a hard-fought loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. They were the number one seed in the AFC last year, and with a 5-3 record, it looks like they're going to take this AFC South with everybody else faltering. Derrick Henry is still the man there in Tennessee, and despite not having much of a passing game because Malik Willis has been the starter the last couple of weeks, Tennessee still managed to go 1-1 in those two games because of their defense. And so they're exceeding the expectations right now. The other three teams are way below. I really thought that Jacksonville would be at 4-5 or 5-4 right now, and they very well could have. At one point in time, they had a 14-0 lead on the Philadelphia Eagles, but they tried to get cute, and I think it's just a matter of a team that has got to learn to be a winning franchise. You've got a winning coach, you've got a good quarterback, but, just the simplest of mistakes can be the difference between winning and losing. Houston looks to be the number one pick in the NFL draft this year. While I think Davis Mills has played well, the overall team needs to be overhauled. They need a lot more talent brought in. Not necessarily bad coaching in Houston, they just don't play well and they turn the ball over too much. And that'll bring us to the AFC West, which, of course, that's the best, or was thought to be the best division in the AFC prior to the season beginning. Kansas City right on track to have maybe the number one seed in the AFC. Once again, it all depends upon Josh Allen and his injury in Buffalo. Kansas City lost a close one to Buffalo, and so, they've got a bit of an advantage over the Chiefs here, but they're in the lead and in the driver's seat in the AFC West. Denver and the Raiders, both teams have not performed up to the expectations of their preseason numbers. Some of it could be coaching. Some of it is defense issues for the Raiders, offensive issues for the Broncos. The Chargers are hanging in here and could fight to, overtake the Chiefs in this division. But they, from time to time, are really inconsistent. We'll see them play each other on Sunday Night Football in week number 11. And so that could be a game where the tide gets changed in the division if the Chargers can manage to beat the Chiefs. And so there's your look at the AFC. Now let's hand out some mid-season awards. And as I think about mid-season here, a lot of my awards at this point of the season, I think, are the same as they were after we went through the first 5 weeks of the year. I still like Patrick Mahomes as the MVP of the NFL. Defensive Player of the Year at this point in time, still Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys. As far as Rookies of the Year go, originally, I had Breece Hall as the, Rookie of the Year offensively. But the problem with that is now he's torn his ACL. So the next guy in line is Dameon Pierce, the running back for the Houston Texans, an offensive Rookie of the Year. For Defensive Rookie of the Year, it's kind of a three-guy race. You've got Sauce Gardner, you've got the linebacker from Jacksonville, and then you've got Aiden Hutchinson. And of those three, I really think that Aiden Hutchinson has made the biggest difference. While Detroit hasn't had a lot of great defense this year, he has been a wrecking ball and a revelation for their team. Coach of the Year still is, my opinion, is still Brian Daboll. I think that Robert Saleh will definitely get some consideration, but the Jets have had to build from the beginning of the season to get to the record that they're at, whereas the Giants came right out of the gate with the Giants came right out of the gate with a winning record and surprised the Tennessee Titans in week 1. Turning our attention now to the NFC, you've got the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles battling at the top spot here, along with the Giants in the NFC East. This division is much more improved than people gave it credit for in the offseason, including myself. Washington is about where you could expect them to be, but Dallas has really started to come on. I was surprised that they didn't fall back into the pack with the loss of Dak Prescott for several weeks, but Cooper Rush did an excellent job. The Eagles are the best team in the NFC East right now, but it looks like Dallas is starting to come on. The Giants are coming off of a loss, but they had themselves a bye week, so maybe we'll see them come back and do something special here in the second half of the season. The NFC North is a stunner. I expected the Minnesota Vikings to win the division, but I didn't think they'd get out to this kind of lead. Green Bay is just not themselves this season. Aaron Rodgers has made a lot of mistakes. His wide receivers are not making the right kind of plays, and the defense, which was touted to be one of the best in the NFL, has not lived up to its billing. Now, I really thought that the Detroit Lions were going to come on this year, and although they've been in almost every game, they're still struggling on defense. Their offense has been excellent in every game with the exception of the shutout against the New England Patriots. That was just a bad week for Detroit. Chicago is starting to come on now. Justin Fields is starting to make this offense his own. And while I'm disappointed they traded away Roquan Smith on the defensive side, I think Chicago can still make some noise, especially when they play against the Packers and the Lions. Perhaps they could come up in this division and end up in second place. There's always the possibility that they could make the playoffs from that second spot. But here's a division that I'm pretty sure the second spot's not going to make the playoffs, and that's why this is a dogfight right now. You've got the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 4-5. The Buccaneers have way underperformed what they have, for their season. While they do have some injuries, I think the coaching change has made a bit of a difference in Tampa. I think that the defense is not as strong as it was the previous couple of years, and the offense looks out of sorts from week to week. The New Orleans Saints, they're just hanging in here, and they could still make some noise, but they got to do it in division. Outside the division, they've struggled. The Carolina Panthers at this point are tanking. And so, the Atlanta Falcons are in the driver's seat if they can make some hay against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like Atlanta. They're doing a lot of things that I didn't expect them to. Marcus Mariota's maneuverability has really changed the way that offense plays. Arthur Smith might get some consideration for Coach of the Year, especially if this Atlanta team makes the playoffs. The second strongest division is the NFC West. And, as you can see, I have San Francisco making some moves here. With the addition of Christian McCaffrey, yes, they're 4-4, but they're coming off of a bye. And a situation where I think that they're really going to start putting some things together. I like that Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback for this team. The defense has been outstanding despite missing 3 starters due to injury. I think the Rams are almost done. The Cardinals certainly are. And so it's going to be between the Seahawks, who are really surprising this year. Geno Smith has played so well. The running game and defense have come on. It's like the Seahawks of old, back when Russell Wilson was first there his first few years, and they were making Super Bowl runs. And so I think between the 49ers and the Seahawks, this is going to be a very interesting division down the stretch. So now let's take a look at the absolute current playoff picture if the playoffs were to begin today. And as you can see, if the playoffs began today, the number 1 seed in the AFC would be the Buffalo Bills. In the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. The matchups are very interesting. You've got the Chargers and the Chiefs, the interdivision rivalry right there. They'll be playing again here this next week. I like the Chiefs in that particular game, especially if they're playing at home. I think they're more consistent, and their offense is really starting to come around. Their defense has played well this year, especially when it comes to getting a pass rush. Miami and Baltimore played earlier this year. Baltimore had a big lead. Miami managed to come back and beat them, but I think playing in Baltimore will be a little bit of a different scenario. Although Miami's got great offense, their defense seems to let them down. I would take the Baltimore Ravens in that matchup. The New York Jets, while they've got themselves a pretty good, first half of this season, if they have to go to Tennessee, I think would run the ball down their throat, and I think the Tennessee Titans would win that game against the New York Jets, which means it would be the Tennessee Titans versus the Buffalo Bills. I would see Buffalo winning that game. Baltimore, Kansas City, almost too close to call. I still like the Buffalo Bills to come out of the AFC and go into the Super Bowl. In the NFC, of course, you've got Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Dallas Cowboys. Tampa is a shell of itself from when they played Dallas earlier in the year. I think Dallas would easily win against the Buccaneers. The Giants as the 6th seed going all the way to Seattle. I think this would be a very good game. They played each other here just recently, and the Seahawks managed to win that game. I think they would win again. San Francisco going to Minnesota. While I'm a big Minnesota Viking fan, I'm sorry to say that if the 49ers played the Minnesota Vikings, I really believe the 49ers would win that game. And so you'd have the 49ers on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. What a matchup that would be. Dallas would be going to Seattle. I think Dallas could beat Seattle and get to their first NFC championship game in over 20 years. It's really a tough call for me. At the beginning of the season, I had the 49ers versus the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. I want to say the 49ers would overcome the Philadelphia Eagles and then eventually would beat the Dallas Cowboys. I still want to say the San Francisco 49ers lose to the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl this year. I'm still going to stick with that as we are here at the midway point of the season. So there you have it. There's the midseason report here on Picks with David. I want to thank you for joining me. Be sure to tune in each week when we're going to have videos on both Thursday and Sunday. Sometimes a special one on Monday for Monday Night Football, but generally it's in whatever week's video we'll have on Sundays. But again, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time right here on Picks with David.